Hey, Liberty North, AP Psych. Welcome. This is Tuesday, March 31st, and we are going to be continuing on the topic of psychoanalytic theory and personality. So, the first thing we need to do is take our personality test for the day. So if you want to get out to your chapter 15 lab, and this will be personality test number 2. Right, and this one is a id, ego, superego test. Actually, just don't write that down. It is a Freudian personality test number 2. I think that's what I put it down in Canvas. Can't remember what I named it in Canvas. Okay, so we're continue on with taking some psychoanalytic tests, and this will be number 2. You need number 1 to 11, it looks like. 1 to 11, do not need to skip spaces. You're just simply going to write down A or B. Okay? All right, so for each question, you're going to have 2 choices. I'll read a statement, and then your choice is either A or B. You have to choose one of the 2. Okay? And just make sure you write down A or B, and not necessarily what it stands for. Okay? All right, number 1. In rush hour traffic, do you A, pass others often and try to move up in the line and get to your destination faster, or B, just stay where you are and kind of go with the flow of the rush hour traffic? Okay, so again, you're just writing down A or B. All right, number 2, you're driving down a 2-lane highway. Okay, 2-lane highway. There is a very, very slow moving turtle in the middle of the road. Do you A, stop, pull over, get out of your car and move the turtle to the other side, or B, just drive by and leave the turtle to his own fate? Number 3, I'm going to change this a little bit up, change it just a little bit to make it more relevant. Okay. The coronavirus has infected your family. Do you A, stay in and follow the stay-at-home order mandate placed by the government, or B, do you continue to run errands, get toilet paper, go out and grab dinner? Okay, so A is that you follow the stay-at-home mandate. B would be that you don't, basically. Okay, number 4, you are shopping at Target. A person in front of you at the counter has forgotten her purse. She's an elderly woman and is unable to pay for her $10 purchase. She asks you for help. Do you A, help her pay for her items, or B, nonchalantly just act like you don't hear her or move to the next line, ignore her, or any of the above? Okay, number 5, it is Valentine's Day. You are currently dating a person that you no longer have feelings for. Okay, do you A, go ahead and get them a small gift, or B, just go ahead and break up with them? Number 6, a customer comes into your store and proceeds, or wherever your place of work, and proceeds to yell at you for a mistake that you have made. Do you A, stand your ground, argue with the customer? B, do you calmly help the customer, or try to calmly correct the situation? Number 7, a large group of elderly people are getting ready to cross the street at the intersection that you are approaching in your car. It will take many minutes for them to cross the intersection, and you know this, okay? The light is yellow, and you are late for a very, very important meeting. Do you A, go ahead and just stop and wait for them all to cross? Or B, do you kind of try to speed through the intersection, beat the yellow light before they have the ability to cross? Okay, so a large group of elderly people are getting ready to cross the street at an intersection that you are approaching. The light is yellow. Okay, you know that it's going to take some time for them to get across the road, and you are late to a very important job interview. Do you go ahead and just slow down? Number 8, a neighbor's dog gets off its chain and bites you. Do you A, confront them about the dog biting you, or B, just leave it alone and don't really say anything? And let's say that the bite does require medical attention, minor medical attention. Okay, so a neighbor's dog gets off the chain and bites you. The bite requires minor medical attention. Do you A, confront them about the bite and the dog? B, do you just leave it alone? Don't tell them. Okay, number 9. It is Black Friday, and you are shopping for a very, very special deal on a very special item that you want. You get up early, you go to the stores are open, and you see a person being trampled by the crowd or by a crowd. Do you A, intervene, help them out, knowing that you probably will miss your item, or B, just ignore the situation and go for your item that you came for? Good thing about doing this online is that you can keep your answers completely private. Number 10, you go to the vending machine at Liberty North, you put in $2 for your Pop-Tarts. And then the Pop-Tarts get stuck at the end of the rack and do not fall down. Do you A, violently shake the machine, kick it, punch it, try to get it to drop? Or B, do you go ahead and just find another avenue? Do you put more money in? Do you go to the office? What do you do? Okay, so A would be shake, kick, punch the machine. B would be basically anything else. Number 11, you are in class taking a very important test, and you notice that a student is cheating on their test. Do you A, confront the student or tell the teacher, or B, do you just kind of let it go? Okay, so for each number you should have A and B. I'm going to go down and give you a letter then that you're going to write by your answer, okay? And then this will correspond to the key here. All right, number 1, if you put down A, write down an R, the letter R. If you wrote B, write down the letter S. Number 2, if you wrote A, write down the letter S. If you wrote B, write down the letter R. Number 3, A is S, B is R. Number 4, A is S, B is R. Number 5, A is S, B is R. Number 6, A would be R, B would be S. Number 7, A is S, B is R. Number 8, A is R, B is S. Number 9, A is S, B is R. Number 10, A is to add up your R's and your S's. And again, we should have 11, so you should have, the closest you could be would be 5 and 6. Okay, and then this is basically a systems of personality test by Freud. This is actually written by former students. So if you look on down, if you missed anything, you just have to watch it again and go back. If you want the answers, Caden, 10A is R, B is S, 11A is R, B is S. We used to have a project during this chapter in which you would make your own personality test and you would give it to the class. Still struggling with how we might do that, which was actually really cool. But this is a test that students wrote, and what it does is it measures which system might be the more powerful in you: the id, the ego, or the superego. Okay, so R stands for the id. Okay, so if you have more R's, then you have that's an indication that maybe your id is your strongest system. S stands for superego. Okay, so if you have more S's, then your superego would be the strongest system. And then if you have 5 and 6, then your ego is winning because it's keeping your id and your superego pretty balanced. Okay, so I know it looks like it skipped out a little bit. So I know there's some, let's see what we want. What are the last two? Mine froze for a second. Last two answers. Okay, looks like last two. Okay, so the last two answers are A is R, B is S, and that's 10. And 11, A is R, B is S as well. Okay, is that what you needed as the answers, or did you need the questions? I got it froze. Are the answers good? I'm going to take that as a yes. Okay. All right. Yeah, just answered. Okay, good. Thank you, Julia. So add them up again. R is the id, S is superego, and then if you guys are still going to have a pretty strong id, again, that's what develops first, and then you guys are actually in the adolescent stage of development. Your ego and your superego are finally starting to be developed and are gaining momentum. So it's not out of the usual for your id to win, but at the same time, we're all going for 5 and 6, getting the id, ego, and superego balanced in our personality. Okay. All right. So if you want to give this to somebody else, you can rewatch the video, or you can play the live stream later off the channel for them. You can go back and you can write it down, because this one's a little bit longer for me to go back and write down the questions. So feel free to do that. Also, I'll live stream it this afternoon at 1:30. Okay. All right. So just to review. Okay, so we started personality theory, okay, which the goal is in psychology is to measure people's and identify people's stable and enduring pattern of behavior, okay, and we want to do that obviously in a reliable and a valid fashion, okay. First theory is Freud's theory. So again, learning targets number 2 and 3. So we'll be continuing Freud's theory today. Which basically believes that our personality comes from our unconscious mind. Again, we have 3 levels to our mind: conscious, preconscious, and unconscious, and most of our personality is hidden down in the unconscious. Now, there are traits that are biological, and so there's nature and nurture according to Freud, okay, but we also have traits that are in the preconscious and conscious mind that we're kind of more aware of, okay? The 3 systems are id, ego, superego, okay, so my id is my pleasure principle, my ego is my reality principle, and my superego is my morality principle. Id is the devil on my shoulder, superego is the angel, and then I would be the ego, okay? We interact, those systems interact in every situation, every context, every behavior, and what we want is we want traits from all 3. We get biologically traits from all 3 according to Freud, but we just don't want one system to be too dominant or too strong, okay? All right, the next thing we're gonna talk about really quickly, and this kind of taints the movie Toy Story a little bit, but still it's just a great movie, and it's masterful how it weeds some of the Freud Freudian theory in there so that kids can't catch it or understand it. And actually, if you don't have a psychology background, most of the adults don't even catch the references to Freud's theory. But on page 599, you're going to get the madness of Freud. So again, the id, ego, and superego are basically considered very valid and genius, and that I think everybody, you're supposed to write down an example of an id, ego, superego in your life, and I think that all of you could find that probably. On page 599, it's Freud's psychosexual stages of development. Okay, all right, and just by the name, you can kind of see where Freud went. Freud was pretty obsessed with sex. He believed that most of the stuff that was hidden in our unconscious mind was sexual in nature, aggression, vengeance, anger, things like that. So he had a pretty dark view of humans. Now, again, Freud standardized all his theory on sick people. So basically he was working with neurotic or psychotic patients, mostly neurotic. And he himself, I don't think, was the healthiest as well. And so he basically came up with his theories working with himself and other people. If you read his book, Interpretation of Dreams, you can definitely see that. But Freud believed that as we developed through 5 stages, which are on page 599, which I'll let you look up, in which basically what we're doing is we're developing, and our personality is developing, we're basically finding ways to appropriately express the sexual energy or desires that we have. Okay, so Freud believed that even an infant at a very young age had sexual energy or desires that had to be repressed. And most people don't like that. That's kind of it's just kind of a gross concept, if you will. So basically each stage was named after where that sexual energy is focused. So the first stage would be the anal stage. And that's where its focused is on basically learning to be potty trained, learning to control that, relieve yourself appropriately, so on and so forth. Okay. So those are on page 599. Now, some pretty key culturistic terms have come from this theory. So if you've ever heard of anybody said that they were anal or anal retentive, okay, that would basically be Freud's way for referring that they're stuck in the anal stage. Okay, that they have some personality traits that don't really allow them. They become fixated there. So an anal person has too much control. And that was because they really struggled with the potty training part of development and learning to control the body and so on and so forth. So that's on page 599. The other stages oral is first: oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital stages. Okay, so you can imagine where that leads to. So, but again, a big part of this, which you probably have heard, is the Oedipus complex. Okay, so the Oedipus complex basically is based off of the Greek tragedy Oedipus Rex, who inadvertently kills his father and marries his mother. So Freud also said that as we're developing, that we unconsciously long and are attracted to our mother, and we hate our father. We are fighting with our father for the affections of our mother. Okay. Also, there's the Electra complex, which is the same thing for the females. The females have sexual energy towards their father, excuse me, and then are fighting for the affections with their mother. So it mentions those on page 599. Okay, identification, fixation. Fixation is when you become stuck in a stage. So I'll let you kind of handle that on your own on page 599. And I think what I would want you to know development-wise, just know that you develop the systems in order. So the id is basically your inner child, if you will. That's where you develop the childhood. And then ego is your rational, logical thought, which you are developing, again, as your mind cognitively developed. So refer back to kind of Piaget there, and then refer to Kohlberg here with the superego. And that moral reasoning is in that formal operations. It's one of those last type of developmental cognitive abilities. Now, we all have moral reasoning. It advances as you get older. Hopefully your reasoning involves more people, right? Our scope of influence and focus grows. So again, just like with the coronavirus, a stage 1 thinker, a level 1 thinker is just going to be concerned about themselves and how the virus impacts them. They're most likely probably to avoid the stay-at-home order, keep their business open, to go hoard trade. You know, we want to get through this as fast as we can, and then that controls their behaviors, whether they stay at home, if they go out, and so on and so forth. Okay. All right. And then to give you a kind of hint and just a glimpse, because my goal is hopefully that I piqued your interest in Toy Story and that you would actually go and watch it after you read this chapter and after you do some research on Freud, because you'll catch a lot of things. So also a very famous theory is called the penis envy theory, okay, in which Freud basically wrote that all women unconsciously marvel and desire to be a man, and basically based on his research in Toy Story, if you watch the very first one, when Buzz is introduced, Woody's having a hard time adjusting because everybody likes Buzz. He's new, he's shiny. And at one point, he's kind of throwing a temper tantrum. And I believe that it's the pig and Potato Head, which kind of represent the superego a little bit in the movie, walk by him. They're like, what's wrong with him? And I believe it's the pig. Ham says, laser envy. So he envies and the laser that Buzz has, which is a direct reference to penis envy. Again, it's massively Freudian. It's still a wonderful movie. Don't share that with anybody younger because we don't want to ruin it for them. So, but there is tons of Freud stuff in there. Okay. All right. So then on page 600, okay, the last thing for today is, again, going back to the genius of Freud, and you'll be able to see these in yourself, is the defense mechanisms, which are basically, and the book calls them defense mechanisms. I think it's better if you know them as ego defense mechanisms because they're used by the ego. So I think, look in the book. Yeah, the book just titles it Defense Mechanisms. It's at the bottom of page 599. It goes to 600. But these are used by the ego to maintain that balance between the id and the superego. Okay, and to, again, try to keep the balance in your personality and in the three systems within your mind. Okay. Now, obviously, the main goal is to keep the id from gaining power because that's the most dangerous to the person. Okay, I can still function better in society if my superego is stronger, but I still, again, have some negative personality side effects because of that. So the goal is to try to keep them in balance. So what you don't want is if the id's winning over and over and over, you know, you don't want to be, you want to protect you from that and your mind from that. Okay, so you're going to use defense mechanisms. Okay, and they're basically explanations to help you feel better about letting the id win, or at times when you've given into the id, or at times that you've done something and the superego has gotten out of control. Okay, so it's kind of like a coping method. That's what they are. They're coping methods to help you keep the three systems of your personality in check. Okay. So, and we'll give you examples of these. And actually, you can find all of these in Toy Story as well. They're just identified in there one after the other. But there are many. I think there's a total of 12 if we look at all of them. Repression. Okay, so we've talked about repression. So when our mind unconsciously blocks things from our memory, that is a defense mechanism. That's a coping method. We've talked about that. And it is used again for you to cope with generally traumatic events. Is kind of the context we talked about it now. But also we're going to repress times that the id has won or that we've done something that we're ashamed of. You know, we're going to have kind of that selective memory, right? But we're going to basically, the ego will block things. So according to Freud, it's the ego that does it. It's the ego, that part of our personality that blocks things from our memory that might be too traumatic, that might show that the ego or the superego or the id are getting out of control, and so on and so forth. Okay. Regression is basically when I regress backwards to a previous stage of development. Or basically the easiest thing to remember, this is like when I just act immature, okay? So I regress backwards in development to help me feel better. I think the book talks about a great example is, you know, even if I'm an older child and I hurt myself, sometimes I will run to my mother, okay? And I think there's actually, there's a picture in the book of a mother holding a pretty old child that probably shouldn't want to be coddled by mom, but to feel safe and secure, that's what he's going to do, okay? So now we can see that in our halls at Liberty North quite a bit. You know, you have students who develop faster, some students are more immature, and that immaturity is basically a defense mechanism. It's a coping method for something some other lacking or some insecurity or some type of id or superego desire that the person has, some type of conflict that they have. Okay. Reaction formation. Some people struggle with this one. This one is basically being two-faced, okay, or hypocritical, if you will. What I unconsciously feel and think is going to come out in the opposite in consciousness, okay? So there's a really good scene in the movie Toy Story where Woody's having the toy meeting at the very beginning, and he forgot to tell him that Andy was going to have a birthday party. So at the very end, he kind of says, and Andy's birthday party is today, okay? And then they all start freaking out, and Woody's like, don't freak out, don't panic, when actually he is panicking. He is freaked out. So he's throwing the opposite out in consciousness, okay? So if you are, unconsciously, you don't like somebody, you're giving them the silent treatment, but when you see them, you're going to act like you're very glad to see them. Hey, how are you doing? That type of thing, okay? Reaction formation. Projection is what I think and unconsciously feel about myself. I'm going to project onto other people. I'm going to notice in other people. Because again, let's be honest, we feel better if we have a deficit or if we're insecure about something and we see it in other people. Freud talked a lot about this in dating relationships. If you are insecure in a dating relationship, you're gonna be jealous a lot. Well, projection is then noticing jealousy in the person that you're dating or in other couples as well, because that makes you feel better about the jealousy that you are experiencing, okay? And then mainly that your id, and that's also a superego, would be experiencing, okay? So unconsciously, what I see in myself, I project into other people because it helps me feel better, okay? And then rationalization, we all do this. We make excuses for, I have something in my mind and I go ahead and blurt it out. My id wins there and I say what's in my mind. Probably wasn't a good idea, a good thing. I'm just gonna be like, I'm gonna rationalize it. Well, they had it coming. Well, they shouldn't have done this, So I'm gonna make excuses for the behavior, okay, or the action or the thought. Okay, displacement is when I'm actually I have so much energy or conflict in the id or the superego that I'm going to go do something to displace it on something else. So, this would be, if I'm really stressed out, I'm going to go exercise, I'm going to sleep. Okay, sleep is a displacement coping mechanism. I think the book talks about the example, dad has a bad day at work, so he comes home and he displaces on mom, so he yells at mom. Mom then yells at the children. Okay, so everybody's displacing, and then the children kick the cat. Okay, so the cat gets the brunt of the displacement. Okay, so those times we talked about catharsis. So if everything builds up and then you begin to cathart in a bad way, you go into a fit of rage or anger or screaming. You're displacing the conflict, the stress within yourself on whoever it is that is going to receive the blunt of your stuff, okay? And then denial, which is kind of a rationalization, but that's just I refuse to admit, so and it could also go under repression a little bit. Sometimes it's different. I think the book, I put it in there because I think the book has it. Sometimes it's listed, sometimes it's not, because it can be found in the other ones, but denial is just when I refuse to admit that, and Freud talked a lot of this about with addiction. So if I am addicted and I refuse to admit that I have an addiction, that's denial, okay? But that helps me because if I am addicted, which system is generally winning? It's the id, correct? The id is winning. The superego has all been out of shape about it, constantly judging the person. So that you're addicted, and then you have all these judgments internally, and so the ego is really trying to maintain the balance, but that's a result because the id's out of control. So, you're going to have that. So that's why they say the first step is to admit that you have a problem, to get past the denial, which is there. The ego knows that. It's just the id's winning. Okay? All right? So according to Freud, then, your personality comes from not only the three systems of personality, but also then this fight for balance and the defense mechanisms and just trying to keep them all together. You want your surgeon to have a pretty healthy, developed id because you need people who are fast acting, who are deliberate, who possibly are a little bit impatient, but act quickly, okay, spontaneously, okay? So, there's a place for all of them, and we get traits from all of them, but you just want to keep them in balance. And so just don't forget that not only does my personality come from the unconscious mind and the preconscious and conscious, the three systems, but it also comes from the defense mechanisms. And those kind of get thrown out as my personality develops, and really can kind of focus on a few traits or developing of the traits, okay? All right, that's it for today. Again, don't forget Friday's a big due date. So chapter 4 stuff, your journal critique is due by Friday. And then your chapter 15 stuff is already on Canvas under the assignments, and everything's there that you need. This is on your lab. This would be test number 2. Any questions anybody has? Are we good? Okay, and again, I'll live stream again at 1:30. And then if you want to give this test, I've got a lot of feedback yesterday from people sharing the first test. And again, it sounds like, again, that it was very, very accurate. Yeah, so go back and write down the questions and give it to somebody else. Tomorrow will definitely be one that you want to give to somebody else. So I'll go a little bit slower. And kind of, again, explain I'm just adjusting to the new normal. Hopefully that it'll be just through the end of April, and then we'll be able to get back to normal. Julia. Yeah, I'm caught up on the journal critique. So I've looked at everybody who sent it in. Julia, maybe did you just share, if you shared it with me without giving me an email, just shoot me an email with the link on it. That way my inbox doesn't get so cluttered. But last night I thought I was caught up with everybody who had sent it in. So yeah, Julia, so I apologize if I haven't gotten yours back. I don't think I remember looking at yours though. So if you just want to real quickly, just email it to me and send me the link, and then I'll do it today. And then anybody else, same thing. I'm caught up right now on previewing them. Because most people don't have to send it in very much. Usually most groups it's just one time. They'll send it in. You've already written one. You kind of know the format, and I'll just look at it and send it back. There's a few groups that needed more than one, but most people it just is one. Yeah, sorry, Julia, if I missed it. Yeah, I've been caught up, so I must have just missed it. So yeah, just send it to me and with the link, and then I'll get it done today. I'll probably go do it right now. Okay. Again, I hope everybody's doing well. Again, it's going to be nice and sunny, so go ahead and get outside and enjoy it. I think very soon here, if this keeps up, I think I'll probably live cast outside in the sun. Remember, between 10 and 2, get some sun. All right, if you have any questions, let me know. Miss you guys, and enjoy the day. If you have any questions, contact me.